The summer of 2018 was supposed to be one of the most fruitful years for the Watts family. The husband and wife, Chris and Shannon Watts, had just found out that there will be an addition to their two daughters, Bella and Celeste. Living in the suburbs of 2800 Saratoga Trail, the couple appeared to be fitting in quite effortlessly in the community. One neighbor even referred to them as a normal, everyday family. But what happens when a seemingly picture-perfect life turns into a homicidal tragedy behind closed doors? Watch as we slowly uncover the harrowing tale of deception, betrayal, and murder of the Watts family. Chris and Shannon met in 2010 in their home state of North Carolina and got married on November 3, 2012. During a trip out west, they fell in love with the scenery and overall vibe of Frederick, Colorado, and moved into a spacious 5-bedroom house that they promptly started to fill up. They welcomed Bella on December 17, 2013, and her sister, called Cece for short, was born July 17, 2015, and Shannon was pregnant with their third child, a boy they were going to name Nico. It was the morning of August 13, 2018, when the Watts family made headlines when Shannon and her two daughters, Bella and Cece, mysteriously disappeared. The disappearance was quickly reported by Shannon's friend and workmate, Nicole, when she noticed that Shannon was not responding to the several calls and text messages she was trying to deliver. Nicole was supposed to accompany Shannon to her doctor's appointment as Shannon was 15 weeks pregnant at the time. As the hours dragged on, the anxiousness intensified. From then on, Nicole knew that it was time to involve the police.
How you guys doing?
Brother?
What's that?
Do you remember me?
Yeah.
Hey, man.
How you been?
Hi.
You Nicole?
Yes.
Okay. So what's going on?
We were out of town for a business trip this weekend,
Right.
and I dropped her off at 2 o'clock this morning. Her car's in the garage, her shoes she wears every single day are by the front door.
The police quickly came over to conduct a welfare check. Frederick Police Detective Dave Baumhover was met with an empty home, except for Nicole, who was anxiously pacing back and forth outside the house. They tried knocking on each door, but no response was made. Chris Watts, the husband of Shannon, arrived late due to his work at Anadarko Petroleum as an oil field operator. After Chris consented to the police to check on his house, the search began, and so is Chris's downfall. The Watts family home seemed to be normal. No foul play was on site or any signs of violence made at home. It was, as the detectives described, too immaculate to be normal. According to Shannon's workmate, Nicole, she dropped Shannon off at around 2 a.m. in the morning, coming home from a business trip they've had in Arizona. She made sure Shannon safely made it to her home and that she saw her go inside their front door, but noted that over the trip, Shannon was visibly distraught and wasn't normally eating. Her statement was quickly supported, as the officer saw evidence of the scene confirming Shannon had recently returned from a trip. Her suitcase was by the stairs. A woman's shoes were by the door, except for a few oddities. According to Chris, he talked to Shannon, his wife of nearly 6 years, about wanting to separate after she got back from her trip around 2 a.m., and then he went to work at 5 a.m. He told the police that she said she was going to go to a friend's house along with their two daughters, though he could not name the friend. But if she had left again, as Chris repeatedly claimed, it seemed that she took nothing of importance, as her purse, car, mobile device, and medication was left at home, except for the kids, which only made things more suspicious. August 14, 2018. The following day, the FBI and Colorado Bureau of Investigation joined the investigation. As the search ensued, Chris gave stilted television interviews in hopes of reaching his missing wife and two daughters.
If you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back.
Chris stated to one interviewer that he and Shannon had an emotional talk before her disappearance. As the day dragged on, he continued to appear on several media outlets pleading for his family's safe return. But what was concerning at the most was Chris's eerily calm interviews. For someone whose wife and two daughters are 24 hours missing, his nonchalance and lack of emotions was beginning to be a red flag for the investigators, and they knew that it was time to bring him in for an interrogation. FBI agent Graham Coder conducted the one-on-one interview with Chris. The FBI agent talked about some possible marital problems he and Shannon might have had in their marriage, and Chris was quick to elaborate on the matter. According to Watts, during their time apart in the past 6 weeks, He had felt as if there were no more spark left in their relationship. Hence, his reason for being emotional during their last discussion. The agent suggested a possible illicit affair he might have going on, and he was quick to deny the allegations, saying he has never cheated on his wife. The FBI agent Coder knew that won't be digging deeper than what Chris only allowed to be dug, and so he asked him if he would take a lie detector test, or also known as the polygraph test. Confidently, Chris Watts agreed. August 15, 2018. The polygraph went through as suggested, and as the investigation intensified, cracks began to appear in the facade of the murderer that is Chris Watts. What Chris failed to evade was the window of time for the interviewers to comb through his technology for any suspicious acts. And as expected, the investigators found something, namely, Chris was having an affair with a coworker, something he previously denied to Agent Coder. With this new information, the trajectory of questioning with Chris. Watts appears to be quite agitated and unpleasant in the room with the four corners. It took numerous reminders from Field Agent Tammy Lee to remind him to breathe in and out. After giving Chris some time to calm down, Field Agent Lee started the interrogation procedure. He said no to all three questions when law enforcement eventually asked him if he physically caused Shannon to disappear, if he was lying about the last time he saw her, and whether he knew where Shannon was. The polygraph revealed that he had been lying all three times. Chris received the lowest possible scores on the polygraph, despite allegations regarding its veracity.
So, it is completely clear that you were not honest during the testing, and I think you already know that. You did not pass the polygraph test.
Okay.
Okay. So now we need to talk about what actually happened. I feel like you're probably ready to do that.
I didn't lie to you on that polygraph, I promise.
After it had been ruled out that he had failed the polygraph test, the interviewers were able to place a subtle pressure on the victim that would make him confess. He dragged on and committed to his lies for a little while, but as shown in the interrogation room footage, the only thing he could commit would be his crimes. As a way to explain his failing results, Chris admitted to being in an affair with Nicole Kessinger. With the questions being shot after shot, Chris began to stress out and asked if he could talk to his father. The interrogation dragged on for hours, but not without a truth being confessed in the end. Chris was able to talk to his father, and there, he admitted a filtered, heinous crime he committed. Chris gave Ronnie, his father, a partial murder confession claiming he had killed his wife after the latter choked their young two daughters to death, which would be a lie. His father can only tap his forehead in the stress his criminal son had done. Upon hearing the confession, the interviewers re-entered the room and pressed Chris Watts for more. Eventually, he admitted into burying his wife in a shallow grave near Anadarko property and to placing his daughters' bodies in the nearby oil and water tanks. Watts was arrested immediately after the interview, and the authorities were quick to retrieve the body of the victims. The motive behind the murder was Chris desiring a brand new life with a secret affair he was having with Nicole Kessinger. Upon hearing this, Nicole was in disbelief. According to her, Chris gave a promise that he's in the process of divorce and that she's not aware of his wife being 15 weeks pregnant. She was saddened by the news, calling it a senseless, horrific act. As details emerged, the public grappled with the chilling reality that the man they thought they knew was capable of such unspeakable acts. In less than 24 hours after his desperate plea into the world, Chris Watts made a shocking confession to the police that would forever leave a trauma to those involved. The mask Chris had presented to the world in his TV interviews and the family's Facebook accounts was slipping, and what lay beneath was a horrifying image of instability, infidelity, and boiling rage. In 2018, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to multiple charges related to the murders of his pregnant wife, Shannon Watts, and their two young daughters, Bella and Celeste. The charges included Chris Watts pleaded guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of his wife and 2 daughters. Second is unlawful termination of pregnancy. Since his wife, Shannon, was pregnant at the time of her passing, Watts also faced a charge of unlawful termination of pregnancy related to the death of the unborn child. Watts's guilty plea was part of a deal with prosecutors to avoid the death penalty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the 3 counts of first-degree murder plus additional time for the unlawful termination of pregnancy and other charges. A video of Chris Watts's whole admission, which he had given to detectives in February, was released to the public on March 7, 2019. He admitted to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation agents on their video that he had jumped on Shannon in bed the night of the murders after telling her he no longer loved her. He says she threatened to take the kids and go away from him. Then, with Shannon's body in the truck bed and his living girls in the back seat, Watts drove for 45 minutes to a distant oil field. Watts claimed he smothered Celeste in the back seat before burying Shannon in a small grave. Bella begged for her life, and he returned to smother her after disposing of Celeste's body in an abandoned area. As he went to kill her, Bella screamed, "Daddy, please no," and this was the last words she spoke.